You are? Remember that? And you not only look like this. This is my son, Isaac William.
Hello, son. How are you? Nice to meet you, Isaac William. You did such a great job.
Right there is fine.
That's what goes on right on top. Yeah, it's the. I guess that's the air filter for it.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to Night Nationals 2004. Glad to have everybody here. Every year we grow in numbers, in size, in cars, and it's always a cool thing to be part of a group like this. And this evening we are very pleased to have our special guest, Pamela Susan Shoop, join us. Please stand. Well, we've seen you in Knight Rider episodes, and now we have the privilege of seeing you in person.
Well, thank you
It's
for
great to
having
have.
me. This is so great. I'm really impressed.
It's
I
great
had
to
no
have you
idea that this whole atmosphere was so alive. I would have been doing this before.
Very good. Well, and here you are, and you are always welcome.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely, absolutely. Pamela was, as many of you know, but some may not, Pamela was in 2 Knight Rider episodes, Night of the Phoenix and Night of the Juggernaut. And this evening she will be sharing with us some stories that she remembers. She'll be answering questions. She'll be signing some photographs, signing some of your things that you've brought. You have some photographs here, and as I understand that they are for sale, yes?
Yes.
Autograph photos are each?
20.
20 each, and that's pretty good. And these are some fine-looking photos, I must say. To go with a fine-looking person.
Now.
Very good. So we have some of the clips from the episodes that she's in that we'd like to show now, so we can all remember the involvement that she had with Knight Rider. And after that, we'll just let her share some of the stories she remembers, and then open it up for some question and answer. So we'll just get underway with that.
Over here.
And I'm walking right through here. Have a seat right here so you can see wherever you're talking. Pamela has said that she had never seen that blooper before, and she doesn't remember David saying that to her.
No, but I guess I was there,
You
so
were there.
I must have
And if you listen really close, you know, after he said that,
moment, you know.
after he said that, we heard her voice saying, "Ah!" Wasn't it? Did you hear it? Yeah, we heard it. Oh, very good. All right. Well, that is her contribution to Knight Rider. This is also her contribution to Knight Rider. So let's give her another hand. So I would just like to open the floor up to you.
Okay.
Please share some of the things that, you know, maybe some of the feelings and memories that seeing that again brings up. And when you're done saying everything you want to say, then we'll just open the floor for questions.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Well, first of all, this is just amazing to me. It is really bizarre looking at yourself, what is it, 22 years later or something. It's really rather remarkable. And the first thing that came to mind, I owe you guys an apology, although it isn't my fault. One of the things that bothers me is the looping. And I was really struck by it when I was watching this. I don't know if you noticed it, maybe it's just a technical thing that if you were in the scene you would notice, but when we're riding in the car and a lot of times you hear, we're talking and my voice would sound like Minnie Mouse or his voice would go up an octave. It's because there was a lot of noise in the cars, you know, when we were doing the toe shots. So we'd end up having to loop the whole thing. But instead of actually using either the looped cut or the real-time cut, they would interchange back and forth. So it was really weird to me. I don't know if you all noticed it, but noticing that like we'd be talking on a certain level and our voices would change. I don't know, did you notice that? You did? Okay. You didn't notice it either. And then little things like, and Glenn Larson was kind of famous for this, he would add lines. If you like the way you did a line, he'd just make you say it twice, like in the car with Edward Mohair. No, I can't, or whatever it was I said. He just threw it in there again, which was just kind of odd to me. So those are my recollections. Knight Rider was a great experience. I had no idea when I got the job. I just auditioned. I've been doing a lot of TV. I've been doing TV for years. And thankfully for Glenn Larson, because he is just a just a wonderful producer, and I was very fortunate that he liked my work, and he called me his lucky charm, which was really nice. He would, if he used me in a pilot, usually the pilot would sell, like Magnum or a lot of the other ones I did for him. And if he didn't use me, they didn't sell, so that always so, thanks to him, I had quite a long career. But when I first got the job, I thought, talking car. I thought, my mother in the car. Who would have thought that all of you people would now be such avid Trans Am fans and still be enjoying it this many years later? And I'm struck too in the two shows. I was thinking about it. The other night before I came, I watched them both again because it had been a long time. Can you hear me back there? Yeah? Okay. I think as the show progressed, it got a bit more, well, to quote Scott Rice last night, or no, in your article, he called it cheesy. I think it just became a little bit more predictable, more formula, more just that 70s, 80s, early 90s kind of genre. But I think one of the really beautiful things about Glenn and his pilots usually, they have a lot of heart. And when I watched the pilot the other night, I found that I was fast forwarding, kind of like this in Juggernaut. But when I watched Night of the Phoenix, I found that I was very caught up from the very beginning in the relationships between, especially with Richard Basehart, who was dying and who entrusted Michael with his legacy. And I had forgotten that plot point. I had forgotten that that was such a precursor for the entire series. I'd forgotten about that. And I thought that that was a beautiful thing, that one man, as Don was saying as well last night, that what touched him also is one man can make a difference. And I think the reason this series was so popular in the beginning is because I think people wanted to know that they could make a difference. And here's someone shot in the face and still is able to make a difference. Yesterday when I was flying in, I actually, just by the luck of the draw, I was seated next to one of the Blue Angels. Do you know the Blue Angel pilots? And we were talking flying, because I come from kind of a flying background. And he was talking to me about the 2 times that he had almost been killed. And what happens in that, not to go into a long story about it, but there is a person who's called Boss, who sort of sings a cadence on the stick, and the pilots look at one another. If you're on this side, you look this way, this way, this way. You don't look at your controls. You don't look at the horizon. You simply look at one another and listen to the sound of his voice. Pull it back, whip. You know, it's a whole rhythm that they have. And I guess they've been out partying the night before or something. And it's supposed to be 12 hours in between. They call it 12 hours from bottle to throttle, so that your body has enough oxygen in it and is hydrated. And apparently he didn't. He forgot to call whatever that command was to pull up. And this pilot had gotten down, and the photos showed that he was almost on the ground when he pulled out. He said you could really barely tell the difference between the plane and the ground. And there's no reason he shouldn't survive. There's no reason the plane shouldn't have stalled, but it did. And he was telling me about how that changed his life and how that changed his relationship with his son and with all the people that meet and had heart to it in the beginning. So that's something I kind of thought was special. When I look back, I think how fortunate I was to work with Edward Mohair, because he was a wonderful, wonderful consummate actor, tremendous stage presence, and just a really nice guy. He was a wonderful person, and I liked watching, although we didn't see it here tonight, I liked watching the nuance in his performance as he was playing the bad guy, Juggernaut. He was Devin Miles, but he was also the clone of Devin Miles. And he had very tiny nuances that I found were really interesting. And I liked being in Chicago on location with the two of them. We had a blast. In fact, if any of you happen to be in Chicago and you go to the Ambassador East restaurant, if you walk up to the hostess, who seats you in the restaurant, there are pictures all over the walls. And if you look right to the left, you'll see a big picture of, or just, an 8x10 of David and Evelyn O'Hara and me having dinner there. It's still there. I was there a couple of years ago, and I didn't recognize myself because my hair was different. But anyway, that was there. AJ asked me to mention a little bit about how I got into the business. I started working in a soap opera. Well, first I started out on stage. I did play with Robert Cummings, and I was in the national company of a play called Generation, and I worked in theater for a long time. And then I did a soap opera called Return to Place. I don't know if you remember that. There was Allison McKenzie in that. And then I just began doing a ton of television shows. And my mother had been an actress. She had two names, Julia Bishop and Jacqueline Wells. And Warner Brothers changed her name. And when she was younger, she was Jacqueline Wells. And she starred in The Black Cat with Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff and people like that. And then when they changed her name to Julie Bishop, she did things like Sansa Vivo Chima with John Wayne, and Action in the North Atlantic with Humphrey Bogart, and things like that. So I'm kind of born into it. So I just sort of continued on. And I think if I had to think about my favorite moment, I think that stunt on the two wheels was probably one of the most exciting things I've seen. I was absolutely mesmerized. They had to do it twice, actually. They had to shoot it twice, and I had never seen anything like that before. And I tell you, it was far more exciting in person than it is on film. I think it's pretty interesting. If you would have any questions, I'll be happy to answer anything that you'd like to know. I only did the 2 episodes, so I wasn't a regular, but anybody have any questions?
Well, I'll kick it off.
Okay.
In the Night of the Juggernaut,
Yeah.
there was that tremendous scene when you and David were running under that boat.
Right.
Was that you?
You're running?
Yeah.
Yes,
That
but
was
not.
was it you and David that actually jumped on the boat?
No, it was the
Okay.
stunt people. However, actually, they did. They had a girl that looked a lot like me, and they did the leap onto the boat. But it was really kind of silly because they then had us do it ourselves for the close angle, which they only really showed a snippet of. So I wasn't really quite sure why they went to all that trouble, but they did. I think it was because the boat was moving. No, that was. But all of the rest of the running was done by David. Yes.
You mentioned something about you were there when with the convertible.
Yeah.
The convertible worked.
At the end
Yeah.
of Juggernaut, yeah.
Right. Because I don't know how many people know that it was a working convertible like that, or maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Well, I didn't know what the big
Explain
deal was because I hadn't really. I didn't realize Kit wasn't a convertible. I'm just the actress and the blonde. No Trans Am here. Sorry, guys, but I can't legends for it. I didn't realize Kit wasn't a convertible, and it never thought to wonder. So we were shooting that scene, and it was such a big deal. The crew was all around and everything. So it was, to me, I didn't realize that it was such a big deal until I actually shot the scene and someone said, oh yeah.
That's a good moment. That's a good, funny, comical moment.
Well,
to think back on that, and reflect on something.
oh, I know. I thought it was very clever. I thought the use of Billy Daniels with the voice, with his interaction with David was terrific. And just everything that Kit was able to do, and that's the other thing. Look at technology now. When we shot that show, the idea of a car that could give you directions and talk to you was certainly not really in the realm of possibility. And here we are. You rent a car and program it in. It tells you how to get to Cleveland. It's come about, and I think the show was very much ahead of its time. bed of my car. So, unfortunately, I don't fit into that. But yeah, I think it was an amazing car, and it was an interesting concept too. And frankly, I would really love a car that would rescue me from jail and just plow through. I was watching that the other night. I said, no, I need one of those.
Now, along the lines of the convertible, Joe and I were talking after the interview that he had with you for the Night Rider Legacy book.
Oh, right.
I recall him telling me you said something about along the lines of the convertible. You remember some of the technical difficulties they had with it, like it would get stuck or something like that. And again, I know it wasn't something you paid a lot of attention to, but if you have any recollection of some of those things, we'd like to hear that.
You mean the technical?
Well, yeah. I mean, did they try it a couple times to get the top down? Or to get
Yeah,
stuck
as I
halfway,
recall,
or-
see, we're going back in time, but yeah, I think they did, and I think, it's not refresh my memory, I think they actually had to pull it back. I don't think it actually popped open. As I recall, it was manually done. I mean, you have to remember, guys, this is Hollywood, this is movie making. And the other night, I can't remember which one of you asked me, what was it like riding around in the kid car? How fast did it go? What was it like? And I said, I don't know. I was being towed by the camera truck. It's movie making, and it is real. Your cars probably do far more than the kid cars. I think we had 2 of them. But you're sitting there with a camera, and you're attached to sort of a long metal thing. What is it? Thank you. It's a hitch. All right. Sorry. And then there's the frizz. So yeah, it was a hitch. And it's, they have the cameras mounted on the back of a large truck, and the lights are coming in, and they light you from sides. And then frequently there's a camera on your side for one shot, and then it goes over and does a close-up of David, and then there's a camera on the other side that does your close-up. So you drive around the block a lot, hitched to this truck, and do these shots. So actually, I didn't really speed around in it. I did, however, speed around in the Magnum PI car, the Ferrari. But I did, Tom and I drove a lot of that, and actually, one of the scenes we did in that, in the very beginning, I don't know if you saw the pilot of that, Please Don't Eat the Snow in Hawaii. There is a long sequence of us driving over through the poly and around. And actually, Tom wasn't even in the car. It was the director in the car feeding me his lines while they were doing my close-up. So, it's movie making, what can I say?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say that, thank you for taking the time to share that with us, because we know that to you it wasn't much. But you see, to us, we see Knight Rider on this side of the screen,
Yeah.
and that is Hollywood magic.
Yeah.
But what's cool to us is you actually sat in the midst of that Hollywood magic. So, however it wasn't like it's appeared on the screen, those are the things that we like to hear. So thank you for digging back in your memories for that, even though to you it seemed like, well, what was the big deal? We were attached, it was a trailer, But still, that's a neat thing. So even though to you it might seem like, well, it wasn't that big of a thing, it really is. Because
But it is.
we get to hear the other side of that Hollywood magic.
No, you have the Hollywood magic, and you all have somehow, what I find amazing is that you have incorporated something that happened in someone's mind, it was created in someone's brain, Glenn Larson's, years ago, just a thought. And he created and he wrote that first pilot. And it's become what all of you know to be part of your lives. You've really incorporated it into your lives, whether it be for speed or the beauty of the cars or competition, whether it be to remember, the good old days. When you think back to a time that maybe you were happy or unhappy, that show kind of brings maybe something back to you that you'd like to relive. But it's magic. Movie making is magic. It transcends time and space. It transcends our mundane lives, and it makes us, I think, it helps make people who we are. whether in a good way or in a bad way. But it has allowed you, all of you, to create in your own lives something very, very unique, very special, things that nobody else has. I don't have one of your cars. I think they're awesome. I mean, I just love them. I can't wait to look at them. But it's something very special, and it all took place just from someone's imagination. If you look at Steven Spielberg and his imagination, and you look at the creation of E.T., of Close Encounters, of Jurassic Park, the things that the kernels, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the imagination that went into the creation of that. And Knight Rider is no different. Knight Rider was a special, special creation. And I think that's really, a lot of people put actors down, or they put movie making down, they put Hollywood down sometimes. And I think that's, yes, it's not great, but it's unfortunate because I think it really shapes cultures. I think it helps to shape generations. It helps to change the ebb and flow of our society. And unfortunately, I don't think it's always in a good way. I don't think that it's always to the benefit of society. I think it can be dangerous in some cases, and I think it can be productive in some cases. But entertainment and imagination and just creativity are just so much a part of the world, and I think it's something to be grateful for. Otherwise, you guys wouldn't be sitting here. So, anybody else have questions? Yeah.
Is there any reason why you waited like a couple seasons later to call it back to do something you got not so did they call
Why
you?
did you? Oh,
Like why so?
why did they wait?
Yeah.
Usually they don't call you back. Usually you don't, unless you're a regular, they don't usually have you back again. Rarely on any of the shows. Once you've been a damsel in distress and saved by the good guy, you don't get called back. But the last season, when they were leaving for Chicago, Bert Armus, one of the producers, just called and asked me to do it, which I thought was great. I'm not really sure why. It's nice. You did, but a lot of times, like with Magnum, when I did the pilot of Magnum, they didn't want a girl to be a regular in the series because they wanted Magnum to be saving lots of different women for the next 7 years. So, so that's always, see, I'm always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I get to be the lead, the pilot, yes?
I have a question. I just had a comment. My wife and I watched Night at the Phoenix for the very first time the other day. And I just really enjoyed getting to see such a great representation of your body of work. That was
Of what? So sorry?
your body of work
Really?
as an actor. It was really nice to get to see that. And
Thank you.
it was a great episode. And she kept getting mad at me because I kept pausing it and going, look at that on the dashboard.
They all do that.
That's really sweet. Well, thank you for saying that. I shouldn't say that. Well, Juggernaut was Juggernaut. But when I watched the pilot myself the other night, although you omitted the scene when I got beat up and I was crying, he comes back and I'm
Okay, that was not intentional.
it was not intentional?
That was not intentional.
Put it back and I want a copy of this. But I appreciate that. I kind of love, I have to say I like that character. She was very, it's odd because I played almost the same character in Murder, She Wrote years later. A woman whose husband has been murdered, who has a little boy. You'll see if you watch a lot of these shows, there's repetition in those characters, but I like that character very much. And in fact, everyone in that show, if you look at the characters in the pilot, the relationship between Michael and Devin changed. Everyone changes. She's a woman who has lost her husband, has a little boy, and at the end, her heart is once again opened to a relationship, which I think is a lovely thing. And almost everyone in the show has the good guys, of course, not the bad guys, have a transition, and they move into another moment in their lives. And I thought Richard Basehart was just wonderful in his scenes.
I think the things I liked the most about that particular character was that it was so multifaceted, and yet you played it so seamlessly, and it didn't ever feel like it was anything was ever forced. It felt a very natural progression for that character.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. One second. I have to say thank you. I really appreciate it. You know, when you hold that up, when you're an actress, if you're on stage, it's one thing. I mean, there's instant gratification with the audience. But when you work, as I did for 30 years, 29 and a half, on sound stages, you are in your own isolated world. And to be in this room right now and know that you all, and you saying what you said, appreciate something that I did back then means the world to me. Because you get to a point in your life as an actress where, time marches on and there are fewer roles for women my age, and I don't look like that anymore, do I? But it's nice to hear. It makes you look back with kind of a warm feeling. So thank you for saying
What I was going to ask is, I guess your experience as an actress, when you go out and you do a part, how much of that is you in there, or do you put any of you in there when you do a part, or just a totally make-believe person that you just, try to create? Or do you extrapolate from your own life in any way?
Oh, sure.
Certain characters more than others?
Yeah, I don't think it works, for me anyway. I don't think it works to be a caricature of someone. I think the reason actors, can you still hear me back there? Okay.
The louder you talk, the better.
Okay.
Thank you.
The reason that a certain actor is hired for a role over another, there are a lot of variables, of course, but I feel, especially in television, it's what you personally bring to that specific character. And when I develop a character, I always start with me, with myself. What would I be like in that situation? And my voice, my look, my bearing, I incorporate into whatever the needs are of the character. So it flows from who I am. I mean, obviously, if you take a role like Rain Man, which is a far cry from Dustin Hoffman, there are other elements that you need to put into it. I mean, there are certainly roles like that that are very, very grueling, and you need to delve even further. But I think it's very important to make it a part of yourself. I think one of the reasons, actually, that I work so long is because of what kind of flavor I brought to roles. And actually, I had writers a number of times in shows who would actually say, thank you, like if I was playing a hooker or something. I'd say, I didn't mean it to be this way. Because there was an empathy or there was something, and they'd say, you brought more than I wrote. And I think the women and the actors as well, who worked a lot, had the ability to do that, to bring a depth that comes from inside of you into that role. Otherwise, anybody could do it.
Pamela, we have this for you.
What?
What you asked for.
Oh.
What do you mean he escaped? I told Mr. Nordstrom he was taken care of. What did you say?
I saw part of it. It was kind of sad, actually. It was violent. It was sad. It had an extra kid card there. It was just very violent. I mean, whenever you watch any kind of stunts being done on set, it's frightening to me. I mean, I have a different reaction to it because I was shooting. I don't know if you all remember, but Vic Morrow was a wonderful actor who was killed in a movie with, what was it? The Twilight Zone movie, that's right. And I was shooting that night. Was I shooting right? Night, right? No, I was shooting. I forgot when I was shooting at that time. I think it might have been, it was Magna. And it was an all-night shoot in LA, and we would have to hold for the choppers, the Twilight Zone choppers, to go up. do a couple of scenes. They'd come down, they'd hold for us, we'd go up and do our scenes, and it was like an all-night shoot. And I was driving home that morning at about 6 a.m. when I wrapped, and I heard that Big Moro and some people had gone in, and they were, we were watching them all night long. And so I have to think about stunts. I mean, it's frightening to me. It's really very scary to me. So when I see things like that, I know it looks exciting, but I tend to run the other way. There was a cameraman actually who was killed shooting Magnum, fell out of the helicopter, and another great stunt guy named Dar Robinson, who had doubled D a number of times, and he was killed on a motorcycle. And so things like that happen, and I tend to kind of be a little bit wary of stunts. I mean, I've done my share of them, but when I see them on set, I mean, I watched that and it was exciting, but I probably ran to my trailer. Sorry. Sorry, Joe. Not the answer you wanted, I'm sure. I'm sure there was lots of blood, gore, and guts, and everything. Anybody else? When I was watching the other night, I really thought, if it hadn't been for the music, I can't even imagine what that show would have been without the music. It enhanced it in so many ways, and the ebb and flow of the way you put it all together really made that show. It was 50% of that show. So there you go.
Very good.